Hello and welcome back to a Bringer tier list. Today, in honor of Indiestone finally adding new spawn towns, which is super hype, we're going to be ranking all of the new PZ spawn towns today and the old ones. Since towns are more complicated than traits, I want to explain the criteria I am using first. Number one, how easy is it to get set up in the town as a new player? This includes zombie pop and the ease of getting a car. Special things about the town and nearby locations. And number three, the ease of travel to and from the spawn town. We will get the original 4 spawns out of the way since these have been discussed at length before. So let's go. Now, Rosewood design, the only downside that exists is that it has no VHS store. Now, in build 42, even with the new VHS buff, VHS still aren't to the level they were in build 41. So this is something we can forgive. Rosewood is also the only town with a police station spawn, which is very special in my opinion. The fire station is also quite another wonderful spawn, and with both of them right beside each other, I feel it's quite easy to see why Rosewood is so powerful. The zombie pop isn't too high either. It's more than Riverside by a little in my opinion, but as long as you are careful, these Zeds will be manageable. A few other notable things are the bookstore, the school with a full library, the bar near the gated community, the prison armory, and the mechanic shop. And here's a quick Bringer tip. There's actually a very special house in Rosewood right here that has a rotating loot table that can be incredibly good. From mechanics items, to books, to weapons, to tailoring gear, I have used this town in so many speedruns, I feel it has to be included. When it comes to ease of travel, Rosewood is an amazing location to easily visit Muldraugh, Echo Creek, or even March Ridge. Irvington is also not too far from it. Unfortunately, we are basically cut off from the rest of the map here without huge travel times. And that's going to bring us to Muldraugh, the first of our A tiers. I would almost consider Muldraugh to be like the default Project Zomboid town. I'm not sure why I do think that, but it really feels like the default town to me. The zombie pop is significantly higher than the majority of other spawns besides maybe Irvington, and definitely West Point, of course. But the loot in Mold can compare to these bigger towns a little honestly, especially if you consider the nearby locations like the McCoy logging warehouses, which have an insane amount of loot. Something in particular I want to mention is that Mold has an absolutely massive police station for a town this size. It is actually big enough to compare to some of the LV police stations in my opinion. Plus, with the relatively low Z pop compared to LV, you can easily be looting this station within about 15 to 20 minutes of starting a brand new character on APOC settings. The Mold school has also been significantly upgraded to include a much bigger library, which was previously lacking. Now, the reason it does get stuck in A tier though is that I think the Z pop, especially on the road where all the loot is, can be quite high sometimes, and that definitely drops it down a little. Travel wise, Mold is an amazing location and basically one of the most central spawn towns. I think it's a bit too much for a beginner, but it is a great choice overall. Now, Riverside, this is my favorite spawn 100%. I love Riverside. I have used it for tons of speedruns and most of my challenge runs as well. It's my default multiplayer pick. In build 41, I would have said Rosewood, but I value axes a bit less now. I think Riverside is the second best beginner town. The main reason Rosewood always wins out is that it basically has nearly the same Z pop as Riverside while having a much bigger police station and a fire station. I just choose Riverside because I like it. In the early game, weapons are so important, and in Riverside, your options are limited unless you're willing to travel a little. Speaking of travel, this is the main reason it goes into A tier instead of S tier with Rosewood. Riverside is only close to Brandenburg, Fallas Creek, and the West Point, and even then, they are still quite a distance away. The most notable thing about Riverside is that there are tons of book spawns. The school library is big for its size. The boat club has quite a decent library, not to mention both the proper bookstore and the mail room, which is your best source for magazines. Overall, a fantastic spawn choice, definitely top of A tier. And now West Point. We're going to be getting into our first C tier town here. I struggled a lot with ranking West Point, and I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about this ranking and how I feel about West Point. I played here a lot, and personally, I really dislike it. There may be some bias here, especially with the build 42 zombie pop making the West Point mansions unviable. West Point also struggles by having some pretty poor spawn locations that are in some pretty bad areas, like very far from the main city, which is something Riverside does have as well, to be fair. But for loot, West Point is nearly unmatched. The gun stores here are basically top of the line, besides Louisville in my opinion, where it comes to accessibility and ease of access. The hardware stores and warehouses are right within town limits as well. The only area West Point could suffer with compared to others is its size, zombie pop, and relatively mediocre book locations. West Point is a no-go for beginners in my opinion, or any high pop run. For experienced players, it can actually be quite OP due to its quick access to LV, plus at a high level of play, the zombie pop is usually manageable. Echo Creek. We're going to throw Echo Creek probably number 3 in A tier. I think that's my idea here. The former possible king of spawn spawns in my opinion. I absolutely adore Echo Creek as the spawn. It was removed as a default spawn, but the new changes has brought it back to us. It's definitely an A tier spawn. The Z population is quite low, possibly the lowest of all spawn towns. The mechanic shop and gas station are really great early game buildings to have access to, since they will have a good source of short blunt weapons in the form of wrenches, food, and drinks, plus obviously gasoline. Combined with the house above the gas station making a super easy early game base. This is probably the best spawn town for brand new players in my opinion. A few notable things about Echo Creek is that it is very, very small. There's also a chance you end up without a working vehicle, but that is unlikely. It is something to keep in mind though when choosing your trades and your occupations. Lastly, one nice feature of Echo Creek that can actually help all of your other runs is that there is a set generator spawn near the music festival. I know other towns have this and most people know about it, but I figured I must mention it when talking about Echo Creek. Now we get to the true new ones, baby. Ekron, let's go. Ekron is going to be our first B tier trait. Ekron is a place that in all fairness, I haven't visited much, so do take my opinions here with a grain of salt. I did do some experimenting with it though, live on my Twitch. Come watch me on Twitch, thank you. And was honestly super surprised how nice it is. The zombie pop seemed only a bit higher than Echo Creek, honestly, but it's a fair bit bigger and has a lot more options for loot. The metalworking shop especially is amazing. And it has a fire station of its own, with everything relatively densely placed, so you can easily get around town even without a car. But speaking of cars, there are some very nice parking lots as well that can supply some cars very early. The main thing holding it back is that it's probably one of the worst locations possible for actually traveling to other towns. This is a similar problem to Irvington and Brandenburg that will come up in the future. Overall, a solid B tier in my opinion, maybe top of B tier. Fallas Lake. Okay, Fallas Lake is going to be below, it might be below Ekron. I'm going to put it above Ekron. The Z population here is about average, so that makes it lean towards this B tier position, but it's actually kind of equal with Ekron in my opinion. I have always been a personal fan of Fallas Lake, but I do recognize its weaknesses. For the amount of loot it has, the Z pop isn't really balanced. The good thing about Fallas Lake, it does have a very nice bookstore and a bar right beside each other, which is definitely useful for your god drink needs. There is a farming supply store, which has some guns, but Fallas Lake is definitely falling quite short on the gun front, though the army quarters do alleviate this somewhat. There is also a major lack of garages or factories nearby, which does hurt it a lot. The location is where Fallas Lake really shines though. You basically have easy access to Riverside, Rosewood, West Point, and Muldraugh. So while I don't think Fallas Lake is a good spawn for beginners, for intermediate players or on multiplayer, it can be a really nice location to let you easily access the rest of the map. So pretty much we have two opposites. Fallas Lake, great location, don't love the loot. Ekron, great loot, don't love the location, right? They're about even. Irvington is going to go into C below West Point in my opinion. I was a bit disappointed by Irvington, honestly. The town really has everything you could want, basically. Metal stores, police stations, gun stores, a great school, mini book locations, and a VHS store. Everything sounds good on paper, but the Z pop is not a joke at all. And on top of this, the good locations are all very spread out, meaning you need to clear multiple areas to access the good stuff. The best and most interesting thing about Irvington is its close access to the Irvington Speedway, which is the only spawn for race cars, which are drip-wise the best car in the game, and by most other metrics, to be honest. This alone keeps Irvington high on the list, but not enough to push it higher since Echo Creek and Ekron are both much closer actually. So C tier for sure, but in multiplayer there's a huge advantage to spawning here on fresh wipes to quickly grab a race car or two for you and your friends. Other than that though, there are almost always better places to spawn. March Ridge. This is going to be our first and only D tier town. This has to be one of the worst towns I have ever seen in my life. I do not feel that I am describing anything controversial. I do not feel this is a hot take. I think March Ridge is bad. The Z pop is surprisingly high for what I consider mediocre loot. It does have the military apartments, which can have some really good loot, but you are gonna fight for it. Compared to the massive Muldraugh police station, which is quite easy to clear, it doesn't feel like March Ridge is worth the fight, you know? It also feels like it's just a copy-paste job, which is honestly realistic for a Kentucky suburb, but I don't like it. It feels boring. It feels like it has no real character. Now, March Ridge does have one very cool thing in my opinion, and that is the military bunker. It's super unique, and it really does give March Ridge some character that it desperately needs. But I could never recommend a new player to start in a March Ridge. Maybe a veteran player could make this a solid start if they're able to manage the Zeds. I could see the bunker being a very cool multiplayer base though, so that's something to keep in mind. Travel-wise, I do have to say it's an okay location. It is the closest spawn to Mold, and also very close to Rosewood, which are two amazing towns. I'm going D tier because it's basically unplayable for new players or on high pop runs, and because whatever benefits it has, I can just always find another spawn town that is better, right? So that's why it's going to be D tier. It's the only one we're going to see. The rest of the towns are all quite strong. Brandenburg, I'm going to put at the bottom of B tier, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. I personally really like Brandenburg for the vibes, and the ship is really cool. It's the first water-based thing we've ever had in Project Zomboid, and if I'm not mistaken, and just the fact it exists makes me excited for what Indiestone might have planned in the future for boats or rafts. I don't know. But as a meta player, I do not think Brandenburg vibes live up to reality. The town is very, very mediocre. The zombie pop is definitely too high for the looted supplies. It's not as bad as something like Irvington, in my opinion, but it's definitely too high for the loot. I personally had to take out over 100 zombies to loot just the school, where in something like Riverside or Rosewood, it could be like 0 to 30 Zeds max. The spread out loot is quite an issue too, since we need to clear multiple large areas to extract the same supplies compared to a very densely packed place like Ekron. But Brandenburg does have some very special places. I was very impressed by the metalworking shop, the bookstore with an apartment above it, and of course the boat itself. The boat existing is why this is in B tier and not C tier. It's just too cool. The reason I'm gonna stay B tier and bottom of B tier specifically is that it might be the worst place spawn town in the game. It pretty much locks you out of every other town without large travel distances. I would say if you are a player who never leaves your town, give this a try. That boat is an amazing base, but if you want to actually see the rest of the map without driving for 20 minutes, maybe you should choose somewhere else. Now, Valley Station, this is actually the one I'm the most excited to talk about. This is gonna go right there above Echo Creek, which if you know how much I love Echo Creek, you know how big of a deal this is. I was very pleasantly surprised by Valley Station. Don't get me wrong, it still has some serious problems, but I am surprised how cool it is as a spawn. It's basically not even a town in my opinion. Like, as a veteran player, I think Valley Station has some massive potential as a spawn town. It's not too difficult to find a car. You have an easily accessible gas station nearby, but for beginner players, I think the Z pop is just too high and the sources of weapons too low. Finally, the last nail in the coffin to make Valley Station A tier instead of possibly S tier, it is very on the edge here, is that it is remarkably close to LV, which is great of course for veterans, but for beginner players, they're basically stuck between the two highest pop towns in the game. Not the greatest location in my opinion, but anyways, I will rest my case on Valley Station. I do hope you enjoyed the tier list. I am aware it's a bit top heavy, but the truth is that I honestly believe that pretty much all the spawn towns are amazing. They're very balanced and they're good choices for single player or multiplayer or challenge runs. They're just a few that are a bit lower because I don't think they're beginner friendly. I'm basically ranking them on very minor positives and negatives. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you watched this long. Big love. Bring her out.